Everyone and their dog knows about Minecraft, a worldwide phenomenon with close to 1 billion players and one of the most influential games in history. You might even know about Mojang's smaller games, Cobalt Scrolls and Dungeons, but did you know that they almost made a Minecraft sequel in space? Well, even though it's almost been a decade since the project was cancelled, its name lives on in infamy, 0x10C. This is the story. On August 19th of 2013, Notch made a famous post on his Tumblr blog, the last one he would ever post. For many, his sad words marked the end of an era. Notch had stepped down as the lead dev of Minecraft back in December 2011, and his activity had slowly trickled to a halt over the years, with one exception. When that final word of Notch post went public, Project 0x10C officially went dead. But what was 0x10C? An ambitious space sandbox that could in many ways be considered a spiritual successor to Minecraft, complete with detailed spaceships, futuristic technology, planet-destroying weapons along with plenty of planets to test them on, and a lot more. But this mysterious game has had a pretty wild history, full of leaks, hidden codes and puzzles, and an ARG pulling you into the 0x10C world. Let's start from the beginning. Oh, and real quick, consider subscribing or following my Twitch. I promise, it's worth it. The first time we ever heard about 0x10C was way back in March of 2011, less than 2 years after the first version of Minecraft surfaced online. Even though it was really new, Minecraft was growing super fast and already had millions of players, and among them was a very lucky John Walker, a contributor to the Rock Paper Shotgun website who got to spend a day with Notch in the Mojang offices to see what our favorite Swedish devs were cooking up. Turns out, Notch had a lot of ideas for a Minecraft 2. A quiet sim-style town to just chill in, that basically turned into Minecraft's villages a few months later. Football Manager but with D&D characters? That basically turned into Caller's Bane, better known as Scrolls, which Mojang released back in 2014. But this last one is something new, a space trading simulator. That was all the details Notch gave out, but it sounded pretty promising, especially for the time, when there were very few games like it. It turns out though that this wasn't just a passing thought Notch had, it was the basis for his next new game. In December of 2011, Notch stepped down as the lead developer of Minecraft, and decided it was time to work on a new project with the backing of the Mojang team. At least until March, by which point he decided, screw it, I'm making 3 games at once, let's go, and one of them was, you guessed it, the space game. Later, he said it would be sort of a hybrid between Firefly, a cult classic space show that was cancelled before it ever took off, and Elite 2, one of the only other space trading games in the world at the time, and it was 20 years old. It was definitely an interesting choice to make your new game a crossover between ancient and cancelled, but to each their own. On April 1st, he finally revealed the new game, Mars Effect. Yeah, a new game. Definitely never seen that one before. Walking a pretty dangerous path there, considering they just got out of a lawsuit for using the Elder Scrolls name, but hey, Notch likes to live dangerously. Turns out the whole thing was just an April Fool's joke, except that one tiny bit about actually making a new space trading sim, because 3 days later, a new game was finally revealed, along with lore and tons of features they had planned for the future. 0x10C was here, and it was here to stay. At least, that's what everyone thought. See, even once 0x10C was finally confirmed as, you know, a thing, the history was pretty weird and complicated. It started out with a cryptic puzzle posted on the game's official website, which led to a page of 99 codes for a free copy of the game when it finally released, getting a lot of players excited that the game might be close to finished. It definitely didn't help though that just 2 weeks later, Notch made a whole ARG for 0x10C as well, where the community charged a virtual battery until it shot out coded text from a science fiction novel, which told us the game would take place in the future, because it's a space game, of course it will. Now, don't get me wrong, all of this was pretty cool and very effective in getting people hyped for the game, but there was one big problem. We were nowhere near getting to play it. At the same time all of this was going on, Notch was making the game live on his Twitch, and leaking the code in the process. When the viewers started to reverse engineer these tens of thousands of code strings into a working game, followed by Notch leaking the actual game on his website because he forgot to lock it, thank God it wasn't anything important, the game was not looking good. The official leak was basically just a blue typing display demo, and the unofficial recreation wasn't much better, with nothing but a bare bones, bland, and basic room editor. The community work was going very strong, with some players players even managing to program Minecraft inside of the unfinished 0x10C game. But Notch, on the other hand, was struggling. At the time, Notch had just gone through a divorce, and development was already turning out to be harder than expected, to say the least. So slowly, he just sort of stopped. By April of 2013, the project was put on hold because of his writer's block, but he hoped to finish it later. Unfortunately, that didn't go as planned, and on August 13th of 2013, Notch announced on a Team Fortress 2 livestream that the 0x10C project was officially shelved. Less than a week later, that infamous post popped up on his Tumblr, and Notch, for the most part, took his leave from the community he had worked so hard to build over the years. A year later, C418 released the last bit of info we would ever get, with the soundtrack he had composed to play in the game. And back in 2020, every trace of 0x10C was removed from Mojang servers, putting the final nail in the coffin for Minecraft's mysterious sequel in space. So why did it fail? Like, seriously, you couldn't think of a better formula for success. Space is almost universally considered pretty cool, and it was a sandbox where not only could you do pretty much anything, but the community could then code new games inside of it where you could do even more anything. It was the perfect game of endless opportunity, but that just might be why it failed. At the end of the day, 0x10C was way too ambitious. Games like No Man's Sky, for example, have had more time, resources, and people on their team, and yet, despite being one of the most hyped games of ever, we all know how that went. For Notch, who was almost alone working on 0x10C and balancing it with 2 other projects and a rather complicated personal and business life, it was never gonna work out. Space is simply too complicated and complex, see my last Space video, for anyone to fit it into a video game without incredible support. And yes, Notch had the money and the connections, but for one reason or another, even with all of his skills and privileges, it simply wasn't enough. Could OX10C have maybe survived? Sure, if Notch gave the community a chance to help him, since they were obviously pretty good at what they did, 0x10C could have gone a lot further and maybe even gotten an official release. But after he lost interest, spectators could only do so much. Trilek, which was that community project of rewriting all the code by looking at Notch's streams, hasn't even gotten a playable version of the game out, and it's been 10 years. Sadly, it seems like the short history and the last few clips of Notch's development are the best we'll ever get. In the years since the potentially revolutionary sequel to Minecraft was cancelled, we've had many games like No Man's Sky, Space Engineers, Kerbal Space Program, and more take its place. But we may never get to see the potential masterpiece of 0x10C. Maybe, one day, that will change. Thanks for watching, and have yourselves a good one. Peace.